Hello everyone, Justin here. So someone asked if I could draw a skull in 3/4 view. So that's what we're going to try to do today. So again, let's start with drawing a round circle as our basis for the skull. And here's our brow line, midpoint. And the front of the skull will be right about here. So let's just follow that down. And again, 2/3 of the way up from here to the top. Let's just make it right there. So this distance here, from here to here, we'll repeat it down here. This marks the bottom of the nose. Repeat that one more time down here, and that would be the bottom of the chin. So just bring this down a little bit. So let's go ahead and extend this chin up this way, the mandible, and out over here. So because we're in 3/4 view, here's the midpoint of the face, the middle, and again the side of the sphere is going to be flattened out. So let's just go ahead and do that. So the ear would be somewhere around here. Alright, so this jaw would reach out this way, and the angle of the jaw starts to go up to where the ears would be. So as I mentioned before, midpoint of this ball is the brow. So this would be the top of the holes where the eyes would fall in, the eye sockets. So let's just go ahead and start marking where that would be. So the eyeball would be here, basically. So on the other side as well, there would be basically just a big hole right here. And the nose goes out this way, but of course much of the nose is fleshy. The bone itself only ends up from here to here. So let's just kind of go ahead and start marking that off, like so. And usually it kind of curves upward a bit towards the middle. Same with this side, like that. And again, this is going to be a big hole. So in fact, let's just go ahead and start darkening this a little bit roughly. Okay, so this is a hole as well as on the other side. So let's just make the bridge of the nose right here so we can see where it ends, and kind of go down this way to show that there's a little bit of a light spot here, just so we can delineate the bones here. And then the eye socket again goes down this way. So let's just go ahead and darken this again to show that it's a hole. We can fine-tune that later. And again, right here is the hole. So because the light would show this bone more and light this area up, the inside of the middle side or the medial side of this bone, we're not gonna just make it all black. So this whole side here would be in shadow. So I'll just delineate the edge of the shadow, and I'll just go ahead and darken that for now. Okay, now let's just make this not so round, the top of the skull. So again, here's the brow, and kind of straighten this out a little bit, maybe come out, and then maybe make the top not so round. Go back a bit and start heading down. Okay, as I mentioned before, everyone's head is different. There's no exact science to this. So this bone right here, that's actually the top of your cheeks, would be the zygomatic bone, and it would come back across like so towards the nasal bone. And then the top of the jaw right here, this right here would be the maxilla, which holds the top teeth. I'm gonna actually lower this line a little bit, just because the nose, I would say the nose, bottom of the nose is more like here. So now here was the bottom of the nose, So now 2/3 of the way up from here to here would be roughly the middle of the mouth. So the teeth, I'm just gonna say the teeth, the line of the upper teeth would be right here. So let's draw a line for the upper teeth right here, and then the bottom teeth would fall in below. So let's just mark where we're gonna mark those. We're gonna put those teeth. So I'm gonna go ahead and shade this maxilla here, just to show that it's a little bit further in the back. Okay, now here's the middle of the nose. We're gonna draw a line that kind of comes out this way a bit, just to show that this is gonna be the curve, or like this, and then it goes out to the chin. Alright, now that we've done that, we can start drawing in the teeth. So here's the front tooth. Remember, this line here will mark the bottoms of the teeth, and then this line here is the top. So let's just go ahead and draw in the front tooth, and then next to it, foreshortened, would be the next tooth, and then another tooth back here, and maybe one more. So then we can start drawing some of these other teeth here. There's usually about 8 per side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 1, 2. And then change the shape a little bit. Everybody's teeth is a little bit different. Usually it narrows down a little bit to the root of the tooth, and I'm just marking these tops of the teeth to show that where it's inserting into this bone here. Okay, and then I got another tooth here, and we're getting into the molars back here. And one more tooth back here. So now the bottom teeth are gonna fall in behind, slightly behind the upper teeth. So here's the middle between the front 2 teeth, top 2 teeth, and here's the middle of the bottom 2 teeth, to show that it's a little bit behind and definitely underneath the upper. Okay. Draw another tooth right here, then another right here, so there's a little bit of a gap here between these teeth and right here. So then you'll be able to see the bottom of the maxilla here, this bone. So these top teeth are connected and inserted into this bone up here. The lower teeth are inserted and attached to the mandible, which goes out here, and this is the part that actually moves when you talk and when you eat and chew. So this stays in place, this part goes up and down. So let's just keep going here, and we can shade this in a little bit more in a little bit. So let's go ahead and draw the outer part of the jaw as it recedes around and then back forward. Alright, I'm gonna erase some of these lines that we had from before, like these. Okay, so there's a hole right here where one of the nerves actually comes out. This is called the mental foramen. Foramen just means hole. So let's draw the jaw. It comes out here, goes across and up. Now Let's just go ahead and make this a little bit darker. I'm gonna make this pretty dark now because this is pretty deep in deep shadow. And as we go further this way, the shadow will of course lighten up a bit. Alright, I'm not gonna try to hide the lines too much, but I wanna get a nice gradient here with the shadow. So I'm just pushing pretty hard right here where it's darkest. So the base of this opening, you're gonna see the bone here, so there's actually a bone right here, so it won't be totally dark. But it will get some light, so I'm making it just a little bit lighter. So then this part right here will have a little bit of shadow. Give it a mid-tone just to show some three-dimensional quality to this whole area. So this part right here, the outer part of the eye socket, is called the zygomatic bone, and it actually goes from here and it kind of ends right here and it goes out. So this whole part here is an opening. So let's just add some shadow here to show that this is the bottom part of this bone. I'm just putting some shade here just to show that it's kind of round a little bit, the edge. So then it goes across here and then it continues right here, hiding behind the jaw. So here's the other edge of the jaw, here's the jaw, and it actually slips underneath this zygomatic bone. Okay, and then there's actually a notch here for the mandible, and this would be in deep shadow, so I'm gonna make this pretty dark. And because this mandible is underneath this bone, I'm gonna add a little bit of cast shadow right here. Okay. All right. The way I have the light's sort of coming from out here, this way. So there'll be a cast shadow from the mandible onto this bone. So I'm just gonna make this part dark. That, and then I'm just gonna give this area a little bit of a mid-tone just so it's not just floating up out there. Alright, so let's go back to the shadow. Let's continue the gradient so it's getting lighter this way, and it's gonna start blending in and flattening out here where it's opening. So I'll add some mid-tones right here as well for the brow. So just by adding some shadow here, you can tell that here's the skull, and then it kind of goes in a bit, and then it comes out again for the nasal bone. So I'm just gonna do some light cross hatching here and then use my finger to sort of blend it in a bit. And maybe smooth this out a little bit more, and I'll make this part darker now. So with this eye socket, I'm gonna make this whole area dark, pretty dark, just because it's the farther eye socket. Okay, and now that I've got this kind of dark, I'm gonna make the other really dark areas about that dark and just go over it again here. And again, the same idea applies here, just like here. You can see the side of the bone here, and it's catching some light, so I'm not going to make that part too dark. But this back area will be pretty dark, just like here. So I'll go ahead and go over that again. So the bone inside the nose here kind of goes back this way, so I'm leaving some light right there instead of just making it totally dark. And now that I've made this kind of dark in this eyeball, I'm gonna make this part a little bit darker still, just to match it, because I want this part to be pretty dark to show that it's pretty deep where the eyeball's gonna fall in. And the pencil strokes I use here are just kind of random. I put my pencil mark where I feel like I need more just to make it darker. Okay, make this part a little bit darker still. Okay, so down here there's usually a little hole here, so I'm just gonna kind of put a little bit of a shadow right here to show that it kind of goes in as a hole, and usually a nerve will be coming out of there. As well as here, there's either a hole here or sometimes it's just a notch. It looks like a notch, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of shadow right here to try to show that. I'm gonna use my finger again right here, and then I need to add some tone right here for the far side of the upper jaw. Okay, I'm gonna darken the farther teeth a little bit and erase some of these initial marks as well. This is just a sketch, so if some of these initial marks show, it's not a big deal. Alright, so now I'm gonna put in some shading right here where the teeth go into the jaw or into the upper mandible, up into this upper bone. Now I'm going to just add a little bit of shadow right here to show where the teeth are inserted into this bone. Okay, and I'm also going to add some more shadow right here just to show that it's not completely flat. Okay, alright, this is all white right now, it looks flat, so we need to add a little bit of shadow. Again, the light's sort of coming from the upper right or from the camera side, so this edge here will be more in shadow. So let's give this a more of a three-dimensional quality by adding some halftones here, a little crosshatch action, and then add a little bit more here to show that the underneath the teeth here, the surface kind of goes in and then comes out right here. So just add some more cross hatching here. Okay, again, as this mandible curves to this edge, it's gonna go into shadow, so we need to add more shading here on the edge. Same with here, and then getting light as we get to the surface. So I'll just do that. And just for more accuracy, I'll use my blending stump right here. Maybe right here. Okay, so just like over here, this side of the skull is going to be getting further into the distance, theoretically. So we want to add some shadow here as well, some midtones. So I'm going to just very lightly add a little cross hatching, getting smaller as we get to the top, because this side is away from the viewer, away from the light. Just like that. And I'm just gonna blend it in real quick with my finger. Alright, so the way I made this edge darker, it's more of a graphic way of drawing. Normally you wouldn't really see it this dark. It would just kind of go into a darker tone. But I'll try to kind of blend it in a bit here, so it doesn't look so much as just an outline. So I'm going from very dark where the outline is and gradually getting into the midtones. And I'll do the same right here. See how there's just a line here? I'm just gonna soften that a bit, smooth out the shading here. I'll want to make this part just as dark as the rest of the outline there. So a little bit darker here, and same here, a little bit darker. And then blending it into the midtones just to keep some consistency here. Okay. Alright, so now the way the bone is over here on the outside of the orbit is just this area here. This bone actually kind of sticks just like here. There's like a bit of an arch here. Same thing up here. So here's the edge of this bone. The bone actually kind of sticks out this way, away from this side, this area, the temple. So let's just kind of outline that, and it then goes out this way. Again, right at this point it meets up with the skull. So then it kind of goes out this way a little bit. So again, to make this stick out, look three-dimensional, I'm going to add some shadow down here. A little bit of cross-hatching, rough cross-hatching. Again, a little bit of a cast shadow right here underneath this bone to show that this bone is sticking up away while this bone is underneath. This looks a little flat here, so I'm just going to add some midtones again. A little cross-hatching. And maybe my little finger blending right there. Alright. So just some other details for the back of the skull. So the back of the skull will kind of come down this way and curve in this way. So I'm just gonna erase that line and these initial draft lines. Okay, so as I said, this bone is kind of sticking out right here. This is called the zygomatic bone. So to show that this is further out from the paper, this part will be in shadow, or will have more shading. So let's just add a little bit of cross hatch here to start. and it's gonna blend right here into the skull. So make this area right here a little bit lighter, and maybe start getting into the shadows on this side of the skull to show that it's rounded. Just like here, the skull is starting to go away from the viewer, from you, and into the paper and getting into shadows. So let's make this edge a little bit darker, blending it in as a gradient towards the center as you go inside. And I'm just pushing harder a little bit on the edge and lightening up on the pressure as I go in. Same here. So just to show that this is a little bit curved, I'm gonna make this edge right here a little bit darker, the bottom. And do that. Okay. Do a little rough blending with my finger again. Okay, so this is kind of rough, so I'm just gonna try to smooth it out a bit so it's not so obvious, so the pencil marks aren't so obvious, and make the gradient a little bit smoother. Okay. Alright, so just to keep things more uniform, so we got it pretty dark here on the edge, so let's just make the rest of the mandible here dark as well. So now we have these little cracks in the skull, because the skull itself is actually made of several different bones. So there's a bone, there's a little bit of a crack right here. I'm just gonna draw it very lightly. Some areas are a little bit, show a little more than others, and it kind of goes up like this, and it's pretty irregular. This is called the coronal suture, and I'm gonna just go over this area a bit to show that it's a little bit wider. So this bone right here is called the frontal bone, and there's a bone back here called the parietal bone. So I'm just gonna draw a line that goes like this, and then it goes in this way. This is the temporal bone, I believe. And there's also a line here, a kind of a crack between this bone, which is the zygomatic bone, and the maxilla. The maxilla holds the upper teeth, and this is the mandible again that holds the bottom teeth. Alright, so now we also have these nasal bones right here. There's a definite crack, or it's actually called a suture, and then another one that goes kind of like this way. And sometimes there's other ones that are kind of like around there. So this is area is a little bit too white, so I'm just gonna take my finger, pick up some lead, and spread it around here, just so it doesn't look so flat. Okay, this part's a little bit too light, too much of an outline, so I'm gonna make that a little bit darker, and then again start lightening up the shade as I go in, just so it looks like it's more curved, just like what we did there. Okay. Alright, same with here. It's a little bit too stark here, so just add a little bit of shading along the edge here to show that this bone here has a little bit of mass, has some solidity to it. and it's not perfectly, the surface for these bones isn't uniform. So if you just add some shading here and there, it shows that it's not perfectly flat. Alright, I'm just gonna shade some of these teeth a little bit just to show that it's got some solidity to it. So maybe the bottom parts of these teeth right here, so they're not just outlines. And it's gonna be kind of darker in between the teeth here as well. So let's do that. Some shading around the edges here. And again, these teeth are below the upper teeth, so there'll probably be more of a cast shadow down here as well. They're going to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to do that. And again, give it some shape with some shadow lines around the edges, like right here and here. And these teeth are a little bit farther back, so I'm just gonna make them a little bit darker as well. Switch back to my softer lead to make this part a little bit darker. Alright guys, so that's the skull in 3/4 view. Look at pictures to get a better idea of where the details are and where things fall into place. And with anatomy, some of these features are going to be different, of course, from person to person, from skull to skull. But you want to get the general structures in the right, more or less the right place. So thanks for watching, and let me know if there's other things that you want me to try to draw. Just like this one, someone had asked me to see if I can draw this in 3/4 view, so here it is. Thanks for watching and have a great day.